In this video, I just want to cover how we can use the desert template map to create a very quick desert with using some techniques, using auto-distributing vegetation and also flooding texture maps for terrain texture. So a couple additional levels I added to our mod SDK is the blank level 4x4 desert, and there's also an 8x8 one as well. And what this has in it, instead of having all the vegetation and terrain textures for islands, it has all the vegetation and terrain textures for our training map, which is a desert theme. I also did add all the different roads that we use for that level, which is quite useful for some people. You know, if you want to use these roads, they're probably best suited for this kind of environment as they were made for it. I also added some of the rocks that we also use, and yeah, so you can go in there and pick them from here. These are all suited for this type of environment as well. So like I said, what's different about this is if we go into our vegetation tab, we have this group called grass cover. The name isn't relevant, but what it essentially is all of the vegetation for the desert, but they have certain values where they can grow. So there's different angle slopes for certain things, and there's also different heights for certain things. And this can give you a very varied looking environment very quickly with just one click of a button. So what we need first is a decent height map. You could do this in World Machine, you can do this in something else, but for this demonstration, I'm just going to quickly sculpt something by hand. So maybe we want, oh, I don't want to do flatten, we want to do raise and lower. Maybe we want some hills. Let's have like kind of like a rolling desert, and maybe I'll do like a little cliff canyon. I'll show you how I kind of made mine in the training level. I don't know if you noticed in that previous video, there's like canyons all around, and there's also these big spires in the middle of the desert as well. And I didn't use World Machine for those. I did it all by hand. Matt usually does our World Machine stuff, and I didn't ask him. So maybe I should have asked him, but let's do one like that. Maybe we get a river in here as well. River. This won't be particularly neat, but I'll just kind of go with it. Let's see. Let's put this on like 40 or something. I'm gonna lower the terrain lower than, because I've got the vegetation max height on, I think it's 30.5. So if we go flatten to, I don't know, higher than 16, 25. Should apply the texture to that first. So you can see I'm using all the techniques that we covered in all the other videos as well. There's water volume. So they're all still applicable here. We do rapids. That'll do for now. I won't mess with the texture stuff yet. Flatten. Put a nice river in. There we go. It's pretty rough. Maybe I want to smooth the edges of it and fix all these tiling issues, but I mean, if you watch my river video, I show you how to fix all this strange texture issues that you can sometimes get. Okay. All right, I think that'll do. So how I created my canyons is I did a bit of trickery. I did a road, so I'm going to Misc road, and what I did is I kind of outlined the shape I wanted, and I did this in steps, because if you look at canyons in real world, they're kind of like stair steps, and they're called terraces, so they're kind of. So what I did is I kind of made a road to outline my canyon. Then I click Align Height Map. Well, I actually put border width and 0, so we get this straight edge. Or maybe I put it on 2. I can't exactly remember. It was more like this. And then I go modify flatten, and then I flatten the middle. It's probably easier just to use World Machine stuff, but if you don't have World Machine, or you're not very good with World Machine, maybe you want to do it by hand, and this is how I did it by hand. It is quite a longer process, but you can do what you want with it. So I kind of just did this. So you got that one stair step, but then we did another road. So I'm going to Misc road. And then I wanted another one in the middle. So kind of go in a bit more. This will create our stair step, you'll see. So we can kind of go round like that, round like this. And then out to finish. Then I raised it up again. So maybe we do this one a bit higher. And border width, let's put it on 2 again. And there we go. And then I flatten the middle again. Let's get a bigger brush. I don't have to be neat for this one, but just going to show you. And I'll do one more. And, I want it on the ground. Sometimes if you just have one of these turned off, you have your road floating in the air. You want follow terrain, usually for roads. I'm just trying to do something crazy, but let's do this, this. And then raise it up like here, maybe. All the way to 2. So you kind of get this this kind of Utah canyon look. Monument, what's it called? Monument Mountain? So that's what I was looking at, where they have these big spires in like the middle of the desert. Oh, not layer painter. What am I doing? So these big spires in the middle of the desert, and that's what the kind of look I was trying to go for when I was doing the training level. And I also wanted to block everybody in with canyons on all sides as well. And I used the exact same technique for that. There we go. And I always noticed that the top was never completely flat. We're going to Misc road again. It was always just a little bit more going up. It was like that. There we go. So this is one way you can use roads to manipulate height maps to create something that it's not intended to be. Because these aren't going to be roads, these are just helping me sculpt out like this big pillar, desert pillar. We'll call it a desert pillar. I'm sure there's a real name for it. I'll just call it a desert pillar. And we can delete all the roads, and what we're left with is something that looks like that. Right now it looks like a giant sandcastle, but this is where I'm going to show you how we can make it not look like a giant sandcastle. So if we just go to Layer Painter, and I'm going to change the hardness to, let's say, 0.2. Because when I want to flood the textures, I don't want to lose too much of this color information that's underneath. So I don't want to lose this kind of sandish, like this sandy texture. So if you put color hardness on 1, it will completely erase that kind of look. And what we want is cliff. Now I'm going to save it, because sometimes this engine's a bit scary. So I'm going to click on cliff, and then I'm going to click flood. Now, with all the textures I have here, we already have the slope degrees set up to the correct values and the altitude as well. And there's a couple textures where I've got this set up so I can have, well, there you go. So I can have the cliff on all the sides, and it doesn't paint it here, it only paints it on those angles. So with one click, I've already got a cliff wall now. So the best thing to do is create your entire height map and then do this afterwards. So let's just assume this is my height map. So I've got that, and then I think it was riverbed. And then I click flood again. And I think this is going to give us a bit of rocks underneath our cliff, maybe. Yeah, it's because it's not on an acute angle. Maybe if I smooth some bits out, I can further demonstrate that one. So maybe I smooth this bit here, and smooth that bit there, so we can get some people walking up it. And then we go back here, flood again. Just wait a moment. There we go. So on this angle, we get this kind of rock. I think I've got that same with sand clean as well. If I click flood, and just wait a moment, just let it compute. And there you go. So we got that texture blending into this texture, blending into that sand texture. I think I also have one for the base of our river. Let me just quickly fix this one. Where is step size? Which put on 10. And the scale. Not that scale. 1. Okay, it's not the best looking river, but we'll leave it like that. I've also got one that goes under the water as well. I think it would go to Layer Painter, and we want wet sand. I'm pretty sure there's one called wet sand. Yeah, I'm already on it. Okay, so let's flood this one first, and just let it load. There we go. And you see, anything below 30.5 is gonna be our wet sand texture. So I've just clicked one button, and already the wet sand is under our river and on the sides of our river. And we've already got some cliffs here that's already painted on. So I've already got something that's a very good base to work with just a few buttons clicked. So it's very easy to get something set up with your height map with the correct textures with this template. So that's just the terrain texture stuff. Now, let's just save it again. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is to do the vegetation. And I've already set up the vegetation for this with all the correct densities and values where certain vegetation will grow on certain elevations and certain angles. So if I just click on my grass cover, so vegetation and then grass cover, and then there's this button here, which is distribute vegetation on whole terrain. And this is gonna splatter all over the terrain where we want our vegetation. So I'm gonna click yes to this, and we just wait a moment. So this is going to go off all the values that I've set up on this vegetation brush, and it's going to put the vegetation where I wanted it. I just have to let it load a bit though. And once it's done loading, you should have something like this. Let's ignore the frame rate right now. Sometimes the editor just likes to chug a bit. But now we have all our vegetation set up with just one button. And you can see that it doesn't grow on the sides of the cliff. And you get these big rocks on some areas. On higher areas, I put cactuses and trees. On lower areas, it's less cactuses and trees. It's more just these cactuses and the grass. So the varying height map changes what kind of vegetation grows on what, and also the slope angles as well. So you got no vegetation on your cliffs, but you have them where it's flat or on an acute angle. So it's super useful if you just want to get a quick, good-looking map. And I don't know how long I've been going on this video for, but that it really didn't take me too long to just do. So literally just two buttons. So vegetation or distribute here. Now, if you don't like it and you want to change your height map and you're like, okay, I can change a few things, you can right click on our vegetation brush here in grass cover and then click clear all instances. And what that will do is it will delete all the vegetation on there again, and we'll get our blank slate again. So we'll have our blank map without any vegetation. And then we can edit the height map again, and then click auto distribute, and then have all the vegetation grown correctly on the edited height map. So now you can see that all the vegetation is gone. We can then go in and edit our height map again. So, you know, maybe I'll do another little cliff here or something. So we can edit our height map again. Let's put another cliff or something here. And we can flood the textures again, so I can click on my cliff. So you can hold control and click, and that'll click on and select in here what texture you want. For hardness on quite a low one, and flood. and we have our cliff texture on this bit here. And then we can go back to vegetation. We can click our grass cover, save it again. Click on our grass cover and we can click auto distribute again. And it will go through the entire height map again, and it will see there's a change here, and it won't place vegetation in our parameters, so it won't place the vegetation on the cliff that I just created. And this is something I kept doing when I was making the training level, is I would, I would make the height map, and then I would like to see what it looked like with all the vegetation on there. I would just auto distribute the vegetation, see how it looks. If I didn't like it or I wanted to change something in the height map, I would remove the vegetation and then let it recompute it. So it's all correct with all the values that I put in. And now you can see all the vegetation's back. And again, because I edited the height map, it's not grown on that cliff. I mean, if you want to tweak some of the values on these vegetation objects, like you don't want the grass so dense, or maybe you don't want the grass at all, or you don't want it grown in certain areas as well, you can look up each one of them and tweak their values. The ones that I use the most is elevation min, which is 30.5, so it doesn't grow under the water. And then elevation max, well, I left that so they can grow on any height. And then it's the slope min and slope max. These four values determine where this particular object is placed when you click auto distribute. And it's the same with all of them. Elevation min, elevation max, and then the angle on which they grow on. And it's really fun to just experiment with those, and you can tweak them and change the densities as well, because there's also there's a field called density here. This one's set to 40. So you can tweak the density of these. You can have them more compact or more spread out. But I would be careful with the density one for performance reasons. And speaking of performance, do not worry too much about editor FPS. It does not reflect your final frames per second in your level. A best way to kind of test it is to just jump into game, so Control G and run around. But still, that's not accurate as well. So yeah, that's just how we use flooded textures and auto distribute vegetation. I can go into how I did all the rock work. So I made a new layer and call it rocks. And then I do remember locations. This display remember location 1. Now the engine knows that that's a location I want to remember, and then I want to remember this one as well here. I usually use the hotkeys, but I'm going to show you in the menu here to remember location 2. So then I can go to location 1 and go to location 2. And what's super useful about this is that I can just look at my assets I already have placed, click on one, go to my other location, Control C, and then I have it. And I can rotate it. And place it. So maybe I want one of these on the big cliff up here. There you go. You scale these up. Now, my thing about scaling objects, especially rocks, when you scale them, it doesn't scale the physics proxy very well. So it becomes more inaccurate. So you can get people able to like walk into the geometry a little bit. So what I did to stop people from doing that in my training level is I had rocks at the bottom of these, which aren't scaled. So the physics proxy is accurate on this one. It's not so accurate on this one up here, but the player won't be able to access it because they can't jump as high as this rock, for instance. So we won't have anybody hiding inside rocks. So if you keep continuing to do that around your cliffs, you get a better looking cliff, or you can just leave it as a terrain texture. This doesn't do, you know, such a bad job of the kind of desert look, but if you want something that looks absolutely amazing, you know, go with some brush rocks. And, you know, you can have like these cool spires as well. I like these. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to spend ages doing this because it does take quite a bit of time to dress up an area with loads of brush rocks. But I hope that helps you get a head start on making a desert theme level using flooded textures and auto distribution of vegetation. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.